Donna. Right, so with that, we'll open the meeting at 10 o'clock, 2 minutes past 10. And good morning, everybody, and also to everybody that's joining us via Zoom from the public. I'd also like to mention that Councillor Beard is on Zoom for this meeting. Welcome, Donna, as is Councillor Burden and Phelps. So they will all be joining, Councillor Beard won't be joining us this afternoon, she'll be joining by Zoom, but the others will be physically here this afternoon. And also Francois will be joining us this afternoon. So welcome to everybody else, members of the public that have joined us and staff that are here with us as well. Apologies, there are none because Francois was there, an apology for this morning. Information on the review has been circulated separately. So, Leslie, is Emma taking the reins with us, or are you?
I'll just start us off and then we'll need to take over.
Thank you.
Good morning. After you made the decisions at the hearing and we released the updated rate figure to you, we realised that you haven't really been given all the information that you needed to make decisions around the NZTA changes between option 3 and option 4 at that hearing, and that was a bit of a shock to everyone. So we thought we'd have this meeting to explain those changes. We have the transportation manager here who can talk through that. And that may be that you want to make some changes to the direction you actually gave us at those hearings.
Thank you for that, Leslie. And we just need to take notice too that it's not a meeting, it's a workshop, so we can acknowledge ourselves in lieu of this afternoon's council meeting. Thanks, Leslie, for that. So, Emily, thank you.
So it's not a lot in here, just a couple of slides to show you where the differences are. So this first one is the operational budget for transport. And this is what NZTA subsidise. What is listed here is only the ones that have been changed. So option 4 there is what we have amended it to, which is basically exactly as I had in the original AP before we finalised the draft. So that's where the 473,000 comes from. And it shows the impact. It adds a further 2.4% to rates against the current year. If we look at the next slide, this is the capital one, and this is due to the confusion for the 110k adjustment came in, because in the consultation document we talked about the capital costs. So there's only one item there that was has been brought back up to what we had originally, the sealed road pavement rehabilitation. With land transport, of course, as Carl will tell you, at the end of the day, we're pretty much dictated to by NZTA. The last slide is just all the information I've brought in, what I've brought back in as per that meeting. You will note, apologies, I actually hadn't taken the Regent Theatre grant out, which I was meant to, but that's a benefit, and means the additional cost is only 2,500 more on that one, which is adjustment for inflation. Basically, that's it. If there's any questions, I'll leave it to you to discuss, or perhaps you might want to ask Carl questions.
Your Worship.
Yep, sorry, I'm just reading it myself.
Excuse my terrible pun, but I drove pretty hard for the move between options 3 and options 4 and then your plan hearings and deliberations based on the $100,000 amount. I suspect the mood around the table will have changed with that going from 0.5% to 2.5%. My motive to change that probably has changed as well based on the extra 400,000 or extra 2% on rates. So happy to kick that conversation off, but I suspect option 3 is looking far more attractive now. Is there some commentary around where we're at with NZTA Wakatahi's budgets that was coming out? Is that directly linked to today's discussions or is that still further abroad?
So,
Yeah, so through your worship, the bid approval is still pending. It was originally forecast for Monday this week. We since heard that it won't be till after the budget announcements, which are fairly soon now anyway. What we're anticipating is it'll be likely the approved amount that we get will be probably closer to option 3. But we just don't know how much closer, whether it's going to be above that or below that. There's still we've been softened up for a lesser amount than what we've asked for, so we know that's a given. But how much that is, we just don't have.
And no further guidance has been given around after the budget, which would be at some stage today, following that, not a tomorrow, not a next week. Sort of.
No, nobody will tell us. I'm not sure that they're allowed to tell us, or whether they don't know themselves.
Okay. Yes, Lee, as far as impact on the recent annual plan process, you need a decision on this week as opposed to next month, I assume.
We need a decision this week. So
So waiting for the update's not an option.
if it's Monday, then we can cope with that, but other than that, no, we need to get this plan finalised. It takes time, as you're aware, you can see the work we put into this. It takes time to actually get all the work together, and we've not even done any further rates modelling because that's how long it takes. So we do have to get on with that next week.
I suspect nothing will be coming out of Wellington on Monday next week, being a holiday through the year.
no, in all honesty, too, is the indication I've had has been sort of the 5th, 6th. I don't know if that sits with you, Carly. I think you probably heard the same feedback that I have. So I'm presuming probably maybe by the 7th we should know, but it's a should, which is sort of a risky.
Well, yeah, that's right. There's been a number of targets that have been set for when we should know, and everyone to date's been pushed out further. So, yeah, it's the thing to keep in mind is that we know we're not going to get option 4. However, it's easier to reduce the amount that we've done after we get what we know. If we come back and we reduce it below what we are offered, there's not an opportunity to increase it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's probably better to ask for that little bit more and then pull it back after we know how much we get.
But then that impacts the rates because the rates are set. And the other part of that concerns me is that you're taking 2% more out of the ratepayers' pockets for that intention. And if we don't get the funding, then to me that's, we've taken the funding from them for this reason and then we're presumably going to change the reasoning as to where that'll go. That's not really a good way of operating.
There's no ideal way.
No.
Well, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we went for option 3 and we got a little bit more, that extra funding, because we're in a 3-year program, could be carried forward to next year, is that right?
From our side of things, yes.
And then we could measure that next year with the rates.
Just get rates next year.
Just Councillor, just to really highlight, sorry, through your worship. This is obviously a workshop space to set direction for staff. We will need to have an extraordinary meeting next week to lock the recommendations in so that we can actually come back and get that work done as a resolution of council. But there'll be a short turnaround meeting, sometime next week to do that. It's not a minority at the moment.
So really we're coming down to is that 2%, yeah, is with that 2% stays, we've moved it back to the other option, and if we get more than what we're actually expecting from NZTA, we could roll that through to next year where we can adjust things accordingly regarding rate. Okay.
I think if we were talking 5 and 7%, it might be a different conversation to 20 and 23% in terms of proposed rate rise.
So we're not making a decision, it's food for thought, but I certainly support the going back to that option that you put forward initially, and bringing that rate back. And then if we get the funding, we bank that for next year, because then we can actually really design a program to fit the need, with prioritisation coming into it. So, yeah.
Is this not knowing the funding? Is this a normal time process for them, or is this an out of sync process based on this year's budget and changing government?
It's very much out of sync. Yeah, it has been delayed in past years, but with the change in government policy statement and priorities, it has really pushed it out way beyond what's reasonable.
Riley? No, it's Patrick. Sorry. Sorry, Patrick.
Yeah, g'day. I don't seem to be able to get my camera to work, but anyhow, just a question. The 2% figures one thing proportionally. Can I just get a clarification? And apologies if this is in the documents and I haven't read it, but what are we talking about in absolute numbers in terms of total dollars when you talk about that as a 2% rates increase? What are we talking about in terms of the total dollar cost?
The 473,000 extra is equivalent to 2.4% increase on current year's rates.
Right. Okay. But just because I guess something I would like to discuss is that in the drafting of the annual plan and some other things as well, I think there's been supposed public pressure on keeping certain amenity or nice to have items, and I think we have given in to that public pressure, and that's all well and good. You can call that listening to the community, you can call that being lobbied, you can call it what you like, but ultimately what we're now proposing is to abandon one of the core functions that we do, which is transport infrastructure, and there is no business or local community group that's going to come in and pick up the tab and pave our roads and footpaths if we don't do it. And I think if we don't put the necessary funding in, we're deferring maintenance and we're adding costs in the future for ratepayers and future councils to have to pick up the tab and battle with, unless we're just resigning ourselves to a lower quality of infrastructure in the future. So I just think that's something we should factor into the equation as well.
Point noted. Thank you, Patrick. I think, yeah, it's important we sort of give this the due respect it deserves as far as how we manage this. But Carly, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, so just to sort of answer that, the amount difference, we can balance things fairly reasonably within that tolerance. I'm quite confident that it can be managed without increasing risk significantly to begin with. So there is that consideration.
Because I just, yeah, sorry, one other point and then I'll leave you in peace because I know it's pretty annoying having the Wizard of Oz talk over the computer. But the one other point I just would say is that even in Hokitika, let alone Kamara or Ross or other townships, there are older people who struggle with the level of footpaths and that sort of stuff. It's not as if everything is my favourite footpath in the district is the concrete one as you walk up to the Hokitika Airport. And, my aspiration would be for everything to look like that. Unfortunately, it can't because we just don't have the resources. But there are a lot of assets that are already quite tired. And if there's one area I don't think we should be cutting funding, and you know me well enough, I've met very few spending and rate cuts that I don't like. But if there's one area we shouldn't be cutting funding, it's our core function of providing or delivering infrastructure on behalf of the ratepayer. And I think if we lock into this pattern in the future, I just think that's potentially setting us down a trajectory we don't want to go too far down. That's the only point I want to make in this until something else comes up. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks, Patrick. So as far as the paving component within the budget, and that hasn't been cut back hugely on previous years anyway, has it?
The
footpaths.
Footpaths, no, we haven't changed that.
No, that's still at its usual level.
Which is often sufficient.
Mate?
Which is often sufficient.
Yes, it is, because that's the hardest thing we've got is that, we run over 400 Ks, we've got a lot of communities and a lot of infrastructure servicing small population bases everywhere, and every one of those communities has got footpaths. So, we really are stretched as far as, what we manage and how we manage it. A bigger population base would potentially help as far as, spreading the load, but we've got to deal with what we've got to deal with. So as far as this goes, we've got nothing to pass on this or move or anything else. So where's everybody at with this as far as information? Because we will be dealing with this afternoon formally.
Just clarification, did we not provide sufficient information in the consultation document in that the preference was obviously option 4, but now we're actually going against the overwhelming support of the submission. So what could we have done in the submission document that would have steered this towards this preferred option?
I would say that it would be the operational, inclusion of the operational budget side of things as well. Change that narrative a lot.
Generally operational impacts at the rate rather more so than the actual CapEx.
Yeah, because if you read the consultation document, the average ratepayer would have seen the difference in capital impact was going from $3.11 to $3.18, so they obviously saw it insignificant. It was worthwhile going for a high level of service. And that equates to just over 2% anyway. So I guess we're consulting and making a prudent decision to a low risk option until we are certain about our funding. But that's just my only comment, is that the submission document provide enough information for an informed decision? Could we have done better?
Well, we've always got to ask ourselves, can we do better on how we communicate and information? That's I think a living question that should be with us with everything we do every day, every month, every year, to ensure that we're on the right side of communicating. After all, we are working for the ratepayers. So regarding this conversation, is everybody happy with the information they've got? Does everybody understand the situation? Because in the formalisation of from the submissions and hearings, option 4 was went for, option 3 was what the recommendation was. And the difference that has created is a 2.4% rate rise. So the decision this afternoon will be whether we revert back to Carl's original recommendation, which was option 3.
Sorry, it won't be this afternoon, it'll be
Sorry, in the extraordinary meeting next week, sorry, yes. And that's where we're sitting with that, and that will remove that 2.4% rate rise that's projected to be included at this stage. Oops, we've got Patrick upside down.
You've got your haircut, Patrick.
I'm working on it. Sorry.
Looking good, Patrick.
Right, so is there any further discussion on this? Any further questions? Any more comprehension that's required as far as like getting your head around the figures, what it means, where it's being spent, what we're covering?
Not on this.
No? No? Is everybody quite happy with this piece of information? Councillor Davidson?
No, that's fine. I think Patrick's got his head around those figures now.
Very good.
Yes, very good, we'll give you that one. Jane, you quite happy? Yep. Ryan? Yep. Donna, have you got any questions you want to raise?
Oh, so I do have one question to ask, if that's all right.
It's not on
The distinction between OPEX and CAPEX and their effect on the rates, my understanding is that if we take out a capital cost, the impact on the rates is that if you've borrowed for it, surely that's part of your interest servicing, or even if you've incurred a capital cost that could otherwise be put towards debt repayments, then your interest payments are going to be otherwise higher than they would have been if that capital had been deployed for debt reduction or if it hadn't been drawn down as a loan. So there is a material impact on the rates from capital costs because ultimately the ratepayer has to pay for it at some stage. Can I just get some clarification on that?
That's correct, Patrick, but it impacts on the future years, not on the current year, of the annual plan. We normally draw down right at the end of the year, so it's pretty minimal in that current year.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much.
So if we've got capital spend, I'm just trying to make sure everybody's right with this. So if we've got capital expenditure, capital project, and we draw down halfway through the financial year, we draw down that amount of money to pay for what we've done, that in essence doesn't kick in to impact the rates till the following year as far as debt servicing goes.
It would in that current year, but at the moment, for example, our next drawdown will be next month, early June, so there's minimal impact. So basically, we don't allow for the interest in the current year in the annual plan, not for a full year's interest anyway.
Right.
And bear in mind too, with fluctuating interest rates, it's always an estimate.
Yep. So
Just
just
bear in mind that we try to keep any drawdown at the end of the year, so it doesn't attract any.
so a capital project, we fund it out of our own fund and then draw down that loan at the end. Right. Okay. It's just important that everybody gets their head around, actually understands how that works. Got it. Thank you for that. I appreciate that clarification actually, because it's something that I was not, I have to say, 100% clear on myself. So, any further questions on this? Right. Thank you very much for that. Appreciated with that. Carl, is there anything else you can think of that's relevant to this discussion that we should get our heads around or no?
There's nothing
No.
I can think of at this point.
We really are hamstrung until we find out what that funding's going to look like, aren't we? Yeah.
It's fully staffed until we know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Greatly appreciated. Right. So I guess it'd be bustling to...
Whilst we're all here and talking annual plan, the tourism promotion rate, I've had a group that operate in the tourism space in my constituency put two and two together, and you can guess what I've been talking to, that have put some numbers to us around the difference between tourism promotion rate taken and tourism promotion rate paid out for the year ahead. The difference is looking to be $33,478 that isn't currently allocated to expenditure. I was just wanting some clarity as I am out on that and where that money goes. If it's collected for tourism promotion purposes, it isn't allocated to tourism promotion purposes. I can elaborate with more if you would like.
Yes, please, because everything is basically allocated.
Okay, maybe the numbers are incorrect. So we've got total revenue for the tourism promotion rate 24-25 of 652,803. Eyesight 230,402. Wilderness travel 375,924. Glacier Country Tourism 13,000 for a total of 619,325 with a difference of 33,478. It is currently, off the numbers I've got in front of me, not being allocated to tourism promotion rates. That is being missed here they're just keen to flesh that out, and again, if it's not answered for now.
Potentially loan repayments for the wilderness trail, because we have a high proportion of that is unfunded depreciation, and therefore loan payments are actually charged against the rates.
For the cycle trail, we only fund
80, we unfund 87%, so only 13% of depreciation is funded.
Because most of it's ground, it's not structures.
Okay. Remove the supplementary question of, can we do something else with that money if that is allocated? If you could confirm that, at least you're confirming that now.
Yes, I can pretty much confirm that now. Yep.
Thank you. That removes that question.
Right, thank you. Have you got any other topics you want to cover off in the workshop? Has anybody else got anything they want to discuss here in the workshop? There is quite a bit to be discussed in the formal meeting this afternoon, and I guess there'll be probably hesitancy to potentially deal with some of that now. Patrick, have you got?
No, I've got no further questions. Nothing that we won't cover this afternoon, I don't think.
And same with me, nothing, yeah, it'll be this afternoon, we'll be having the page.
I think we will discuss the email received to councillors regarding an email from Destination Westland regarding the Wilderness Trail. Received. Everybody will have seen that, hopefully. From the Chair of Destination Westland regarding the maintenance contract for the cycle trail.
Just to note, that did come in quite late last night.
Yes, agreed.
Correct.
Agreed. Makes it very difficult, and I have to wonder how, I mean, you know, they've known this situation for quite some time, and there's actually no reason why this wouldn't have come to us at least 10 days, a week to 10 days earlier than what it did. It doesn't assist us when we've got a meeting the next day to consume this, to think about it, and yeah, do some work around it. So, point noted, Councillor Baird, and I have responded back to the chairman accordingly on that.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment that it's interesting that the operation and maintenance has never been an issue until it went away from them, and we proposed they go back to them. Suddenly, oh, we're not making any money out of this activity and we want some more. It's never been raised as an issue prior to that.
Yeah, I think with the discussion on the CCO review, I think there was that hope or that presumption that it would be coming back to us and removed from them. So maybe that, I'm not going to answer on their behalf. I'm only presuming that that could be part of it. Paul?
Through worship, I mean, there are other factors at play here that we're not going to talk about. And suck it up, DW.
Yes, Councillor Monero.
I thought this was all tied. It was going to West Roads. We could have gone away from all this trouble. We could have left it with West Roads and that could have been the end of it. I don't know why we've gone back on this.
But we've never actually been formally advised of how much the cost to shift it to West Roads is. When we made that decision, we just arbitrarily just said shift it. But
Yeah,
there
we
was,
said shift it, so why not stick with it? That's what we said. We said we'll shift it.
yeah, what if it costs $50,000 more, Brian? How do you know how much it's going to cost?
Well, it's a tidy.
If it went to West Roads, would you be prepared to pay an extra premium?
Do you know how much you're paying at the moment? Has DWC told you how much it's actually costing? Do you know exactly how much it's costing? You don't.
It's not a matter of how much it's costing, it's about how much more and the level of
Well,
service.
that's about how much it's costing at the moment. That's a good start.
Just in terms of the maintenance of the cycle trail, I've been involved with the trail right from the start, and West Roads, they've been involved with the alignment of it, construction of it, and maintenance of it, and just from day one, and they are the specialist people that are looking after the cycle trail. Not only the cycle trail, but they've been engaged to construct and maintain other cycle trails along the west coast. They have the skills, and they do a good job. So I just don't know why we're not using West Roads to continue with the maintenance on it. They're the specialised people that are doing it.
There's more to it than.
There potentially is more to it, but the other thing is too, is that one part that does concern me is it's all well and good to say, right, we're going to take that and we're going to put it here, but there's a lot of anomalies in what the true costs are with this, and it means too that on the financial reporting each year is that there hasn't been a very open, transparent accountability of those true costs, because when you read the content of that email from the chairman, they've been basically representative costs as opposed to complete full picture of what it's cost. And, you know, we don't like having hospital passes, and we've given, certainly this council formally certainly given hospital passes to DW. And I'm looking at this thinking, you know, this could potentially be a bit of a hospital pass to West Roads, because what are the true costs? He's talked in here, the proposed management fee for the annual plan is 122,000. It doesn't reflect the true costs of maintaining the current level of service on the trail. We're passing something over without actually knowing what the background detail is, and we do not know, and we should have, because we own the trail. We have a right to have that information, and no matter who manages it going forward, I think that information should be there, because how on earth do we form a contract with West Roads without knowing that information ourselves?
But through the chair, Helen, how come we've never been given the true costs?
That's a question that we have to put to DW councillor, because I think that's the same with Wild Foods and so forth. You know, we get the books, but we don't get the detailed information there, which which should have been pressurised to them to provide. There's a very generalised printout of financial information without the broken down detail. And that's, as far as Wild Foods goes, that's been asked for in the next council meeting. But yes, I agree, we should be asking for a detailed breakdown of information, financial information, so we actually understand it. Because otherwise, how do we form a contract with West Roads going forward?
Exactly right.
Sorry?
She said exactly right.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I'll just take Patrick's and come back to you, Councillor. Councillor Phelps?
I think we are overcomplicating this. There's nothing magical or mysterious about a cycle trail nor the process of actually maintaining it. It requires a certain amount of input each year in terms of diesel, machinery, gravel, skilled man hours, some engineering expertise maybe, I don't know. If we put it out to market like any other tender, someone will put in a bid for it. That may be West Roads, that may be another local contractor, it could be anyone, and the market will find base level. I don't need to know what it costs to produce a $2 bottle of milk. I just go and buy it from the shop and assume that the person providing it's making a small profit or whatever on the bottle when I buy it. If we put it out for tender, it's possible that through the various entities we've got, whether it's been Destination Westland or West Roads or other machinations within the council, the true cost of maintaining that cycle trail has been concealed either inadvertently or deliberately up until now, and we might be in for a bit of a shock if we did put it out to market and actually discover the true cost, and that'll just be an adjustment. We'll just have to like it or lump it. But really, even if that comes at a shock, it's a more honest price, but it's no different than the price we've probably been paying up until now without realising it anyway. It would just be a lot more transparent and clear for the ratepayer as to what maintaining that 130k strip of gravel with a few bridges on it is actually costing us. So I think that's the best way to figure it out, and I can't see why you just wouldn't put it out for tender like any other contract, quite frankly.
Thank you. Councillor Hassan?
To retort what you've said, Patrick, that's where we landed on the annual plan hearing and deliberation day, was to keep it as is for this year and look to the long-term plan for next year for the opportunity to do that, to look at the trust in its entirety, to look at the rest of the aspects of this and the tourism promotion rate in itself. So I'm comfortable with where we landed on that day, and I don't see a need for a change, but I understand the comments you're making, and that's what we're looking to do as part of the long-term plan, was my take from that day. And unless I misread the room on that day, then I think that's where we're heading, but just not for this annual plan, for next year's long-term plan.
Happy with everything you've just said, Ashley. Your memory is just better than mine. Thank you.
Councillor Glenn.
Through the Chair, Simon, why haven't we seen the details of the contract? Is there a contract negotiated with West Roads, and what are the costs involved?
So there is a management contract with West Roads, no, not with West Roads, sorry, with Destination Westland at the moment.
So we made a decision that as part of the review, that we would park trail maintenance with West Roads. But we hadn't, how much is it?
So, Councillor, we hadn't finalised that decision until obviously us deliberation. We can't go into a process whereby we would commit something. We have previous rates that were done with West Roads. That was going back obviously to the build and maintenance that we did in the past before it was transferred to Destination Westland. They could easily be updated. We would have to go into a service agreement, obviously, with West Roads to do the work. We do have expected rates. I suppose just to highlight as well, councillors, MB has alluded to some financial support for Wilderness Trail this coming year, along with the other major great rides in New Zealand, which sees around a 66% funding option for the maintenance at $90,000 capped. So we will be looking at 58,000, which would be enough to offset any additional costs that are currently being talked about. So I don't see it being adverse in terms of what we have in the budget. In fact, we may actually have a subsidy by the end of the year. That still has to be worked through, obviously with MB, but that's the current situation.
I hear what Councillor Manera is saying, hand it over, but we don't actually have a proper agreement with West Roads. It's an ad hoc agreement. It could cost us a fortune. I mean, we're talking, this letter that came through last night states that we're currently funding 122 grand.
That's right.
And there's this notion, well, I mean, we discussed this in the submissions. I raised the idea that we should just park it, not stop it going to West Roads permanently, but just put a hold on it while we actually check the whole thing and make sure it's all fit for purpose. But this could cost us a lot of money by going to West Roads.
You don't know how much it's been at the moment.
Yes, 122. Did you not read the email last night? It's in the management fee.
How come we're asking for more now?
Exactly.
Gentlemen, it does say in here this fee does not reflect the true costs of maintaining the current level of service on the trail. So 122 is only a ballpark figure as far as management fee goes, but obviously doesn't cover all costs involved.
The ratepayers deserve to know how much money is going into that side trail. They need to know every cent. And then they can make a decision. You're worried about the ratepayers, let them know. It's not there.
So as far as the contract going to West Roads, which was the original decision, presumably who's in charge of the contract and the content and the scope of that contract? Us or DW was transferred it to West Roads?
No, it would be us. It's true. So it would obviously come back to us for further negotiations with West Roads.
So again, to know what we are requiring them to do to fulfil their contract, we would need to know what it's going to cost.
Yes.
Us.
Which we negotiation with Roads. Yeah.
And that's what we do not know that anyway.
No, not at this current stage.
No.
But we do have, like I alluded to earlier, previous rates that we use for maintenance.
Which is why we landed where we landed on the deliberation day, in my understanding.
I mean, we do know how much the cycle truck costs because it's roughly 300k, of which 122 currently is maintenance. And there's other fees as well, like paying 80k to the Trail Trust management. So the numbers are known. What's going to happen is that this goes to West Roads, the numbers become less clear.
They won't be, because they'll send us a bill every month and we know exactly what we're paying.
So what happens in 12 months if we get a bill for 200 grand? Would you be happy to support spending 200 grand as opposed to what the current management contract with DW is?
Unless we know what's getting spent on the trail, we get charged 200 grand some way anyway.
But we know how much is spent on the trail because there's a management agreement and currently it's set at 122.
This council, we can cap the amount of funding that would be going towards West Roads. They will match that with the work that comes. Obviously, that could be a drop in service in terms of the state of the trail, but it could be, you know, this is the budget you have to work inside. Bear in mind also any weather events is 100% claimable when that happens, and that's the majority of work that generally comes as part of the cycle valve through now climate. So in the short term, we could cap it in terms of this is the budget, this is the amount of work, and working within that time frame.
And that doesn't include upgrade work though, does it? It's a separate.
It's a capital
stuff.
different conversation.
Which, West Roads normally do anyway.
If they bid for it, yes.
Yeah.
Just bear in mind.
No, that work's tendered, and then if West Roads win the tender, then West Roads get it, the contractors get those tenders through us.
Also bear in mind, councillors, that DW do contract West Roads to do some of the larger pieces of maintenance anyway, in the current role. So,
What you're saying, having a cap on it was it's a good idea. And I think we should leave it with West Roads, but put a cap on it. Maintenance.
current council, it's not with West Roads, it's with Destination.
I want to put it back into West Roads.
So what you're saying is that the discussion we had at the annual plan submissions will be voted to a review of the trail, management, marketing, maintenance, and leave the maintenance contract with DW. You're now saying you don't want to do that.
That's correct.
Yes, but also too at that meeting, Councillor Collette, is Councillor Davidson had his vote recorded against that motion. So he didn't support it at that, nor did Councillors Neil or Manera. They recorded their votes against it. Just check the records there for that. Councillor Phelps, he's had his hand up, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to sort of ask why, I mean, yeah, insofar as the ratepayer should be funding this at all, if the ratepayer is going to be funding the cycle trail, why it would be in the ratepayer's interest to just give the contract to any one contractor without going out to the market to make sure we're getting the most efficient maintenance service we possibly can for the asset, rather than just potentially giving it to one entity on a cost plus sort of model where we don't even know if they're competing to get the work or they could be making a huge profit out of it. I mean, and if it's going to go to anyone, it'll go to the most deserving, capable person if we just go through an honest, open, transparent public tender process like we do with any other asset. I can't see why there's an argument for doing it any differently.
Leslie, financially, is legally, is there anything that we need to be aware of as far as this discussion goes? What can and can't be done?
I know there would be quite a big cost to going out to tender. I don't think the value of the contract would really be a benefit to go out to tender.
What does it cost to go out with?
Through the chair.
Yeah. Thanks,
It could cost anything, $20,000 around about that, depending on what size of the tender. Bigger tenders cost more.
Right.
And just as a side issue, you wish. I do agree with the councillors that we should know what the actual cost is. We don't know ourselves. If you go through, if you worked out the basic side, if you've got two people on here, $50,000 a year, it's not. Yeah, that's $100,000. So you got $22,000 to do everything else. So there's obviously more costs in there. When the original direction came through to go with West Roads, I started negotiating tender rates with them and the contract with them. We were working through the old rates, and I dropped that after the last meeting where it was decided to go back to Destination Westland. So it's up to you.
And you said before West Roads are doing the biggest part of it.
When there's flood damage and larger items, Destination Westland bring in West Roads and manage them.
But that's paid for as part of the.
That's correct.
It's not part of normal trail maintenance, which we're talking about.
Before I go to you, Patrick, just Jane had a hand up. I'll go to Councillor.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Sorry.
It's a wee bit ambiguous the way it's written. The proposed management fee is 122. It doesn't reflect the true cost of maintaining the current level of service. It doesn't say that the costs have been more than that. Because what they're saying is that if it comes back to them, there's other things that they've taken out, which will change the actual cost. So 122,000 could be accurate as to the costs if you read that.
Yeah, but the worst thing is it's very open. It may not be either.
It just says can't.
So just three councillors, obviously pulling both swimming pool, eyesight etc. back into council. Overheads obviously changes quite significantly, and obviously they would have to right size their business to actually accommodate. So that's, I think, what Councillor Neil was alluding to is part of that conversation.
I mean, I sort of tend to agree with Patrick. We need to be very careful about how much we spend, and a tender would be nice, but it's probably impractical. It's only a small amount of money. But I think as a representative of ratepayers and trying to keep control on their spend, I think the notion of just transferring it to Westroads without knowing the true costs in comparison to our current situation is just reckless.
But we don't know it.
Councillor Phelps.
We do.
I also think as well, I mean, I'm not saying tender for it every 3 weeks. You could tender it out as a 3-year contract, which would presumably dilute any cost associated with the tendering process. Just the term of the contract itself would obviously dilute that. But it would also be good to just understand what are the costs of actually tendering, because it'd be good to have that explained, because to my mind, even if you were just going to pick someone that you thought you could trust with it and everything, you'd still have to give them a scope of works and explain what you expected of them, how and when to deliver it, etc., which to my mind wouldn't take much to translate into a procurement or a tender document to give to multiple people and ask them to be able to follow through with that on a competitive price. I don't know what cost tendering actually adds. Is it just the cost of advertising it in the papers, or what are the actual costs of tendering that create that, supposed extra cost if you go out to the market?
Yes, as I said, it depends on the type of contract that you're running. Sometimes you have to get specialist people in to write it. It depends what type of specification you're putting together, how big the schedules are, how big the work is, because you've got to be. There's quite a legal background and behind it. If there's penalties involved, it is quite complicated. It's not as easy as that. I mean, this would not be necessarily a complicated contract.
All right, no, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So I'm picking from here that there's perhaps the decision that was made is perhaps not where everybody actually sits. There is certainly concern over the level of information that is known about the current contract and the costs involved. Is there an appetite? Do we require this to come back for potentially the rescinding of the previous motion for a re-decision, and do we require some information to be supplied to us over a very short period of time to understand the detail around this? Councillor Neil.
Just looking at possible solutions from DW, number 3. Simon, would you like to talk to that about council bringing it in-house?
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Obviously, this would fit under the district assets control, probably reporting to the operations manager. If it was going to come into in-house, the staff allocated to DW would also be in consideration for being transferred to council as well. We don't have any specialist equipment of our own, so once again, we would potentially purchase equipment that's used to maintain the trail through DW. Or purchase our own. So it'll be capital. Yeah, also. Yeah. They may wish to retain it for their own other purpose. I have no idea. The other component is where they work from. So I understand they're working from a DW property, which would have to be, we'd have to pick up the lease for that, for them able to continue to use, find another space where they can work from. So there's things that would have to be worked through. I would see as short-term capital costs if we have to purchase our own equipment, and the lease costs, but the staffing would be straightforward.
So we're presuming from that DW do not own the equipment, the equipment's owned by the people carrying out the maintenance.
The DW own the equipment.
They own the equipment, and that has I presume, a value that's been depreciated over whatever time it's been there.
Which would have to be.
But again, we don't know what that figure is.
The land lease costs would be built into the current management fee anyway. They wouldn't.
It's the assumption.
It's their property. They don't lease themselves.
So,
they lease it to the council through the management.
Right,
Did we not discuss at length 2 weeks ago?
No,
that it was an
it's an
option?
appetite to read.
Option and DW were option for retention, and we came to a conclusion and moved on.
yes, we did. And I'm picking too is that when that decision was made, it was based on probably very limited information as far as having time now to actually.
What more information have we had? There's still massive gaps.
The level of conversation here and what this conversation is covering is totally different to what it was 2 weeks ago when we addressed this through the submissions. We're talking about the actual structure and costs involved and what it's costing DW, what the overruns are, and we don't even know if we're propping any part of that up as far as DW goes. There's a lot
I'm
of
happy to
information.
revisit it, but it needs to be quite clear that we need a really good report that identifies exactly what level of service West Roads are going to give for how much.
Yeah, I'm happy to revisit it too.
I'm not comfortable just giving an open checkbook, or if you put a cap on it, then what level of service you're going to get? You're only going to get a certain amount of.
Yeah, it's not the way to do maintenance contracts. We need to have that control. Leslie, you're going to be,
What's the
are you coming to talk to us? No? Yes, you are. Okay.
Well, there's a management agreement and it's costed.
Patrick, are you shooting away in a minute?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've got off. I've got to head off somewhere else. Sorry, but yeah, thanks very much for this conversation. I'll see you guys at 1 o'clock.
Just a question before you go. Do you want this revisited?
Yeah, I do, and I just have to say, if we were talking about any other private operator we were tendering a contract to, I don't think we'd just be giving it to them. Frankly, I think this is being treated specially because it's West Roads and because we own them.
Thank you, Councillor Phelps.
Thank you. Bye.
See you later. Councillor Baird, you still got your ears on there. John, where do you sit with this? Do you want this revisited?
I thought we'd made the decision that we were looking into it if we were going to revise how the West Coast Wilderness Trust was set up. But I am happy for it to go to West Roads as well. But yes, definitely we need the dollars amount.
So we just talked, sorry to interrupt, but we're just talking about that particular part of what we discussed. The overall review of the cycle trail, we're comfortable with, everyone's comfortable with that part, but the only thing we're just wanting to have a look again is the maintenance side.
Well, actually, if I go back through the notes from and what was passed and moved 2 weeks ago, where am I looking at? Move Councillor Gillette, second Councillor Baird, resolve that Council review the structure of the West Coast Wilderness Trail Trust, the trail and maintenance in conjunction with the review of the tourism rate. So there was an appetite to actually review the whole package for the next LTP. Councillor Neil.
When we give or whatever a contract to West Roads, isn't there a limit to which we can go to without tendering it?
Is that correct, Jill?
Right,
A tendering.
if we're giving a contract to West Roads, isn't there a limit of value to what we can go to without tendering it? And what is that limit? If we were going to give them
Unless you put a special, it can be, it can be authorised. But a general policy is 100,000.
quite easily to change. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Baird?
Well, through the chair, does West Roads, do we put it up for tender and West Roads puts the tender in?
Can you repeat that?
Do we put it out and let West Roads put in a tender?
What are we putting out for tender? The conversation we've had today, no one knows any of the costs, so what are we going to put out for tender and what are we expecting the price to be? That's why I think we landed where we landed 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it for the fourth or fifth time in this meeting. We discussed it, we landed in that position because we didn't know the unknowns. We want to work that out, and we want to put a tender to whoever wants to apply for it as part of the next year, is my understanding. And
yeah, agree, actually.
the next week we can change anything. If we don't have the numbers today, we're not going to have them
No.
tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday, and if we're meeting next week for an extra review meeting to go over things, we're not going to have that detail, and we're not going to be able to have an informed discussion. It's still going to be ifs, buts and maybes, which we've had today.
And we shouldn't be in this position that we haven't had the figures. So
Correct.
That's a negative start.
So do we leave it as it is, which was the original motion, as I said before, the council review the structure of the West Coast Wilderness Trail Trust and the trail and the maintenance
I'd like to see it reviewed.
for next year's LTP, so that the structure then going forward is exactly, we're getting exactly what's needed. We understand the details.
I think Tanya's talking about for this annual plan.
You're talking for this annual plan?
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
So, Tanka, what do you want to see for the next 12 months?
No, I think we'd like to review it this afternoon.
I don't think we'll have enough information.
No.
Okay then.
And if we're going to rescind anything, that will need to be done at the extraordinary meeting next week.
How come you can't come out to tender and see what they're going to charge you? How come we have to tell them what it's going to cost?
Well, it's not a matter of that, is that we don't know what's involved with the contract. Would that be right, Bill?
Through the chair. No, we do know what's in the contract.
Right.
But the issue you've got now is you're trying to set what your rates take is going to be. And if you lock it in at that, or whatever with Business West or West Roads, doesn't matter, that holds that rate that you won't get an increase on it. If you go to tender now, it's going to be at least 5 6 weeks before you get the results back, and then it could be twice as much, I don't know.
Yeah.
All I do know is that, as I said previously, if you've got 2 people, it's $100,000, you've got vehicles, you've got planting, you've got spraying, you've got weed whackers and chainsaws, and it's, that's, let's say it's going to be what it costs.
Yeah. And rate-wise, leaving it sitting as it's been operating is not going to make any variance on the rate
It's
pressure.
already in there.
It's already in there. Right.
What communication, conversations have been had with West Roads to this point about them taking it on?
Stay there, Bill.
Yes, as I said, I had, when it first went through and it was going to go to West Roads, I started negotiating with them and we brought up all the rates. We were just starting to work for it finalised within the financial year. And then it got changed, so we reverted back to it, staying with West Roads, so it's kind of parked.
If it was, my thoughts are that it stays with West Roads, we do special contract thing, I'll talk about, and complete the review, ready for the next year, for the next 12 months. That's just my thought.
That's might agree with that.
So we're looking at reverting back to West Roads contract, which will still need an amendment to rescind the previous motion, put a new one in to revert back to the original decision.
3 members around the table are.
So we'll look at that. And this is not a formal meeting, it's a workshop, so I'm just trying to get an indication of numbers, and saying you don't support that.
I think I've seen it 6 or 7
I
times.
know, I'm just wanting that answer. Councillor Beck?
Well, I think it's a crazy idea to just hand it over to West Roads without a proper formal contract and a costing. I mean, that's just reckless.
What charge your customers there?
Bill, can I ask, sorry, gentlemen, please, you both need to agree to disagree. Risks involved with it sitting with West Roads and having that control over what the final costs are going to be without them coming to us to say, we can't do it for this, we need more money. Where are we sitting if it goes back to them?
I don't know. I only say that because I know what I have been dealing with at Destination Westland. They've locked it in and they've kept it at that. I think it's a bit unfortunate that they can't give us the financial costs of the actual financial costs. I know what it is actually costing. I mean, I can sit down and work it out roughly, but I don't know how the internal workings go and where the overheads lay. With West Roads, we can probably do the same thing for a year and work out what it costs. So it's 50-50 to be fair.
Right.
So just to your worship, the critical thing here, councillors, is it going to affect rates for this annual plan? So
Yep.
we've committed to go with what's in the management contract. If it was transferred to West Roads, it'll be the same figure. So we're not asking for any further increase. Just to highlight again, the MB funding that we are potentially eligible for, we are eligible for the 58,500, which is a buffer that can offset any shortcomings in the first year anyway. We will have to have a proper service contract with West Roads as part of this process. And once again, we can lock it in for a year as part of the process while we do a full review of the cycle trail. Be risky in it. It works either way as well, councillors, so keeping it where it is, it's been working very well in terms of reactive maintenance, especially. Once again, that can stay there and carry on with no additional change in the rates that's been provided. I think we just have to go back to the intent of what you want DW to be. Following the PwC review, more focus around commercial elements. We know the cycleway is reliant on council funding. It's not a commercial driven program of work. It's purely cost in, cost out, so it's zero. It's just a distraction, which they highlighted in their letter to council. But it could still stay there for 12 months and not have a major impact. So I think either way, I don't think it's going to be a major issue because it's not going to affect the rate rise and service will still be provided.
Thank you, Simon. And that's primarily what the workshop today is about, rate rise. But on the same token, I do understand the concern around the decision that was made and what this means. And I guess it really comes down to actually understanding the content of the decision. We're drilling down into deeper information that we're required for want of that can be part of the review. So it really comes down to a matter of where this sits going forward, whether we rescind the motion of putting it back with Destination Western, or whether we carry on with the original proposal, which was to hand it to West Roads, and then make sure either which way that we follow through with that review as far as the structure, the maintenance, the trust, so that next year we're making some very, very informed decisions going forward. It really comes down to where this sits going forward for the next year. Because Earl really needs to Scott really needs to know, because we need to get this tidied up, because this at the moment is a little bit sloppy. So we need some direction from here. Are we going to leave it where it is as to the motion previously, or are we going to rescind that at the extraordinary meeting and go back to the original decision, which was going back to West Roads?
Through the chair, I'll move a motion that we give it.
We can't move motions, Donna. We can't move motions. We're at a workshop. I'm just really wanting direction.
Okay, sorry.
Whether we've got to bring it forward to formalise at the next meeting. Sorry. So your thoughts are, your direction is?
West Roads for the next 12 months while we're revisiting things.
Yep. Okay. Can I have an indication around the table, please, of that? You do? Yep. Councillor Casson?
Sticking with the status quo that we said 2 weeks ago for the 8th or 9th time.
Okay.
To hold it status quo as is while we review things, instead of chopping and changing and sending it to West Roads for a year to then potentially do something else with it or put it to full tender next year. And I thought we all landed on that decision.
Actually, is the status quo still an option with that letter that we received? No additional cost.
Simon was alluding to it being the option.
So the current option that the council has resolved is to keep it with DW. So that's, if you're going to rescind that, is what you need to decide.
But DW have come back and said that's not an option, because they'll have increased costs. They can't continue to do it.
Yeah, funny that.
Isn't that right?
They don't want it.
Can't hide the cost anymore.
Yeah. There's a management fee in the contract where they put a counter offer to us, and that's my reading of the letter. They've said that they might not be able to do it for that amount, but there's not a, for $5,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 more, which would be legal detail we need to make a decision. If Simon's confident that for the management fee of 122, which is in there for each year, that can fly off the end of being as per the fifth front, as per the discussion we had 2 weeks ago, that still makes sense to me. We stick with the status quo. It's been looked after by them for a number of years, whilst we review everything into next year's long-term plan, and then it probably goes to a full tender based on Patrick's comments, and West Roads can pick it up and go from there if they get it, or someone else can tender for it, and we go through a fair process on that thing. We don't understand any of the costs, and we're not going to understand that from meeting next week. So fundamentally, the points we're making a decision on won't change between now and next week. We have no idea of the real cost which everyone's alluded to being a shame, and it is, but we're not in the position to be, as Stephen's highlighted, handing it over for a blank cheque.
So how have you got you got a statement from Don, and you've got an indication from around the table?
Yep. And the only thing we don't have is Councillor Burden and Councillor Phelps' sentiment on that, so there's 4 in support and 2 stays status quo.
I'm here, Helen. Can you hear me?
Sorry.
I'm happy with where we got to last time too, in terms of a full review. I think I had concerns about moving it to West Roads and then potentially in 12 months we decide to move it somewhere else. I think keeping it where it is, I think they do a great job. The fact that they're now saying that the management fee doesn't cover the costs, but there's no true information about the real cost is a bit concerning. I thought if they know that it doesn't cover the real costs, why not tell us what the real cost is? So I'm happy with where we got to last time.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sorry because I didn't see your name on the screen, so I thought you'd actually, you were off line, so my apologies there, Councillor Burden. So the only one we don't know is Councillor Phelps, but what he was alluding to was tender
with the proper
yeah,
process.
which would probably revert back to status quo, and that's presumption. So we're really sitting at a crossroads here of a very much a split, which would indicate that it stays as it is with Destination Westland going forward. Sorry, Jane.
Through the chair, Tom, have you got thoughts on this? You've been very quiet.
My view is, as I said from the start, and the decision was made 2 weeks ago, was the status quo.
Yep.
Status quo, 40%.
And yeah, and that's with it being an equal split and stuff, that's really where we have to go is keep that as it is. So, but I think what has come from this is the fact that we need information. You know, we need to get our heads around this, and you'll be no different. As far as that goes, you've got more information than us. But, yeah.
Realistically, it doesn't matter who it goes to. With the emergency works and extra stuff they're doing, Destination Western will be making a margin on top of that because that's cost plus.
Yep.
All the other work that we get from MB and other people for funding, that has a cost plus issue on it, they'll be making a management fee out of it. And so would West Roads if they took it. So we really don't know where their position is.
Yep. All right. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Anyway, it was a good, healthy bit of discussion there, councillors, I must say. And I think what we do realise is that, you know, information is key, and also historic information that's been not forthcoming needs to be given a dirty great big shake-up going forward. Which I'm happy to have those discussions with that entity afterwards. So we will leave that point there, that's there with the directive to go through to that status quo, but we need to get this information going forward so we get it and follow through with what we put the motion forward with it 2 weeks ago, which was that the whole entity is reviewed as far as trust, contract, maintenance. So, right. What else is there that people want to have brought forward to do with the rates discussion?
The rest comes up this afternoon, does it not?
The rest does come up this afternoon. Right. Okay. Right.
Actually, there was one thing. There's meant to have been something sent out about the race course, is that right?
No.
There's somewhere that information was being sent out?
It was an email sent out with consent.
I haven't seen that.
Right, okay, we'll follow that through before this afternoon's meeting. Right. Anything else, Councillor Davidson, that you want to discuss and get your head around before we go into this afternoon's meeting regarding rate rise? Rate impact?
Not for me. Thanks, Tom.
I'm still not happy with this tourism rate, the name of it and where the money's going. It's a lot of money and I don't think we're spending it properly.
Well, this is part of, I mean, the decision's been made and for a full review of next year. Yes, it is going to be reviewed, and I think this is what's becoming evident, is that, reviews have to be gone on. We have to actually understand what is used, where it's going to, and if it means changing the classification, then so be it, so it's actually easy to comprehend. Because you look at some of those categories and you've got no idea actually what it actually entails and where it's going, what it's going to fund. So that's something that we will be working on between now and next year. But that was the decision at that time. So noted, very much so. Councillor Neal, you got anything else you want to discuss regarding rates rise? Clarification? Councillor Beard? Councillor Beard?
No, all good at this end. All good.
Councillor Burden? Dropped out of service. Councillor Kessler? No, and I'm quite happy with where we're sitting regarding decisions this afternoon's agenda and so forth for rates. Yeah.
So just to clarify, from this workshop, direction for staff is obviously the transportation to go from option 4 back to option 3 is the only outcome from this workshop.
We will formalise that this afternoon.
Oh, the extraordinary meeting.
Yeah, sorry, the extraordinary meeting, sorry, yes, sorry. So many meetings. Right, that's good. Everybody quite happy with that? We'll formalise that next week.
Through your worship,
Yeah.
it's pretty unnecessary to have a whole workshop dedicated to rates when it's only going to deal with that one matter.
Well, that was the primary matter, yes,
Actually, it was discussion about the annual plan and
With
not
respect
the
to
rates.
what-
Sorry, Paul, what was that, Leslie?
The meeting, this workshop, was discussion about the annual plan and not specifically the rate.
Yep. So that was one of the subjects, but it wasn't the only subject that was going to be able to be discussed here.
What's going to be discussed this afternoon?
Well, we've got a very heavy agenda this afternoon, so unless everybody's happy to be here through tea into the evening, yeah, it is a very heavy agenda we've got this afternoon. So with that, as far as the annual plan goes, has anybody got anything specific on that they want to get information on, clarification on, while we have the masters here with us in the room? No? Right. So there would not be any questions come out this afternoon that could have been asked here for clarification. We need to be having an informed discussion this afternoon, not seeking information. Okay.
We can talk about whatever we want.
Oh, of course we can. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying as far as comprehending, this is the time to get the information so you comprehend, so we can engage in some good, healthy discussion this afternoon rather than try and understand certain points and get our heads around seeking more information. We get the information now, we can then have a more solid conversation this afternoon or debate, depending on where things go. I'm not limiting or trying to, or imply that we're trying to remove that ability. Has anybody got anything further? Right, so we will take a break now and reconvene at 1 o'clock. There is a wee bite of lunch at 12 o'clock. Yeah, so.
I'm going to bake some scones.
Councillor, let's go home and make some